So tonight we're at the Film Independent Forum showing Booksmart. I will be doing a Q&A with writer and producer Katie Silberman. I'm really excited to hear what this audience has to ask. I have learned so much from hearing filmmakers tell me a little bit more than I can see plainly on the screen. I think the context is just invaluable. To be on the stage talking about my own movie is mind-blowing, and I'm really excited.
You guys.
Hi.
Hi.
We're on stage.
This
Thank you
is
for
awesome.
thank you for making a great film. Thank you
Oh.
for being here tonight.
Thank you for having us. Thanks for watching it. Very exciting. Oh my goodness.
There's so much to talk about with this film, but I want to start right off with your two leads and the casting. They are so incredible together. And can you just talk about, when they got on board, how you brought them on, and what made you convinced that they were the two?
Sure. Well, Caitlin Deaver was attached when I came on. She had been attached for 2 years at that point because the project had existed since 2009 when it was on the blacklist. And she had been attached since, I think, 2014.
14, yeah.
And she, for good reason, she was the perfect Amy. And it was one of the reasons I was so excited to pitch on the film, because I was a real fan of Caitlin's from Short Term 12 and so many of her projects. I just thought she's so special. And so it became a matter of discovering who her Molly would be. And I was just mad for Beanie Feldstein. I just knew she had that perfect combination of warmth and intelligence and humor. I mean, she's funny in her bones and smart in her brain and behind her eyes. It's not something you can fake. But I had no way of knowing what their chemistry would be like. So the first time, I kind of realized when I introduced them that I had been imagining them as the perfect pair for over a year at that point, but had never seen them in the same room. And we got really lucky that they fell madly in love.
So did you have a first meeting with them, where did you do kind of a traditional audition process or reading different pairs, or did you just get them together to kind of see?
I met them individually. Beanie and I were actually both in New York on doing different shows on Broadway. She was in Hello Dolly and I was in 1984, so we were in very different headspaces. And we met in between shows on a Saturday, and I asked her to play Molly, and she was kind of gobsmacked. She couldn't, but to me it was so perfect. I just knew I didn't need her to audition. I knew she was perfect. The rest of the cast, I give all the credit to Allison Jones, who is of course a genius. Yes, everybody here knows. And that was a really fun process of diving in and reading literally everyone on the planet.
I mean, the cast is incredible. You create that high school world so unbelievably well. Can you talk a bit, but backing up actually, so you mentioned the script had came before your involvement, and what was the history of, like, how did it come to you, and when did you get involved, Katie?
Well, it came to me, I guess in 2016. I've lost all track of time. I think it was either 2016 or late 2015. Producer Jessica Elbaum of Gloria Sanchez, she and I were producing a comedy half-hour series together, and we were driving around town pitching it. And I was making music videos at the time, and she said, what's your first feature going to be? And I was like, I don't know. I think it has to be something I write. And I was working on something that was just not working. And she said, I just have this feeling you should read Booksmart. She had been involved since it was at Annapurna. They brought Gloria Sanchez in as a female comedy producer presence. And she had an instinct about me, which I'm very lucky that she did. And I pitched on it and knew that the script was the core of it was a really great idea, but it needed a reimagining. And so once I, to my complete shock, got the gig, I said, we have to find the most brilliant writer in the world to update this thing and make it really, really special. And that's when I met Katie. That's when that happened.
So that was fall of 2017. And I got an email saying there was a project at Annapurna and Gloria Sanchez that Olivia Wilde was going to direct. And I chucked my laptop out the window because that's a trap. It's too good. And it was a project that I had been aware of for a while. I think there are sometimes these projects that have been around for, at that time, it had been about almost 10 years, and it was an
Wow.
idea and kind of like a concept that people wanted to make, and they were attempting to do it in different iterations. And there was a first iteration in 2009, and then there was a second iteration, and in both instances, there was an excitement for the possibility to make a story about two smart high school girls, two smart best friends in high school, which was exciting, but I think that it was different attempts in different periods of time as to what you could do with a story about two young smart women. And when I got this call, I was lucky because Olivia had the directing job at that point, and she had such an unbelievably clear vision and enthusiasm and excitement for the kind of movie that she was going to make, the kind of high school story she was going to tell. She described it as a generational anthem from the beginning. That's what its possibility was, and that was incredibly inspiring and contagious in its own way. And I had wanted to work on a high school comedy for a long time because I think the best ones are timeless and timely. Like, the best ones are very reflective of the generation that they're talking about, the young people that they're talking about, but the stories and the arcs and the themes are timeless. And so the opportunity to try and do that with brilliant young women was very, very exciting.
So you were doing a rewrite in 2017, and then when did...
She rewrote the entire script, which was basically a page one full rewrite in 4 months.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, but I mean, it also, Olivia had so many ideas. It was a very collaborative process in the most lucky, brilliant way, because she had so many, not just ideas, but like, she was like, there's gonna be a Barbie sequence, and then you find a way to put it in. And so it was a wonderfully, it was just the most rewarding experience of my whole life, because it's not, sometimes, as I'm sure many people here know, 4 months of writing in a room, you come out and it's like The Shining, and you're like, where have I been? And you're alone in your room for so long. And this was really, it was like making a movie the whole time, which is it's a very different process and experience, and it was so much fun.
So when you came to her with the Barbie, what was the idea? Was it just
I wanted to, first of all, I love stop motion animation and I love miniatures, and the concept was something I had been interested in for a while, and I had been wondering what I could do with it. I just love the idea that Barbie suddenly becomes self-aware about her lack of genitals, and like, would she freak out? And it's like the awakening of Barbie. But for this story, I realized when we knew we wanted the girls to go on several different adventures, and that we wanted them to be taken completely out of their element, and we wanted a kind of fresh spin on the accidental drug trip moment, and I thought, what would be the worst possible nightmare for two young, ardent feminists? It would be becoming the literal physical manifestation of everything that's wrong with the patriarchy. And then what would make that even worse is if one of them started to like it. And I just, we worked on the concept for the drug trip for a long time. At one point, it was like a full-on Indiana Jones action sequence, which I still think could really work.
It would have been great.
And then we kind of whittled it down, but it was a fascinating process. I'd never made stop motion before, and we worked with this really great company out of Portland called Shadow Machine. But it was very, very challenging and time consuming, and so worth it. I mean, to me, I felt like it was essential. I wanted the film to take real kind of tonal risks. I wanted it to be bold. I wanted it to feel as intense and unpredictable as it feels when you're young and you do allow yourself to go on an adventure and you're just completely out of your element. So I wanted the audience to feel like, what the fuck is happening? And then the same goes kind of for like the dance fantasy sequence that Molly has. That I really loved the idea of, again, taking us out of our kind of tonal element and making a left turn and showing the side of a character that we couldn't possibly show without going inside her mind in that way. And I love the idea that this guarded, very strong woman is, of course, the most romantic one in the room.
I mean, that's something that it runs throughout the entire film, and with all the characters, is everybody is not what you expect them to be or what they expect each other to be. I mean, I love that throughout the film. I mean, Jared, when he reveals himself, it's this great moment. All of them, and to each other.
Yeah, we really wanted that to be the kind of game of the story, that the audience would themselves be judgmental in the way that we all can be and certainly were in high school, and that hopefully by the end we realize, oh, there's complexity and nuance in each of us, and that's the journey the girls are going on, and hopefully we've gone on it with them.
Yeah, we've talked about how high school and film are kind of the two places where you jump to archetype and stereotype most easily. Like in high school, it's so easy to say, that's the jock, that's the dork, that's the theater kid. It's as easy in the beginning of a movie to try and identify all those people that way. So we had the advantage of kind of an audience being where Molly is and assuming that she knows everything about them and then being able to peel it back throughout.
Another thing that struck me watching the film was how much on-screen diversity there is. It feels like the real world. It feels like you have everybody in that school, and there are so many gay and lesbian characters in unexpected, kind of just presented almost in an offhand manner. Was that on the page? Was that something that you scripted, or was that more in the casting?
Sort of a combination. I mean, we really, in terms of diversity, that wasn't on the page. That was because it turns out when you see all actors and when you just hire the best people, you actually end up with a really representative set. The problem is, yeah, of course, the problem is most people don't look at everyone. And, you know, if we keep drawing from the same pool, it just becomes this recycled pot of, inspiration. There's nothing new if you don't actually take a step further, but that's why Allison Jones is one of the best, and that's what was so fun about this process. I mean, there's several actors who haven't been in any movies before, so in a way, in order for casts to become more diverse and representative, and the same goes for crew, behind the camera crew, you have to look beyond resume. You have to hire people based on their talent, their skills, their ideas, their passion. If we keep hiring based on resume, we will just continue this paradigm and everything will just be the same as it's always been. To break the mold, we have to change the way we hire people. So there's so many actors that, I think maybe you could be a little bit nervous to hire an actor who's never been on a film set, who has a pretty sizable role. But I found that to be so exciting. For example, Victoria Ruesca, who plays Ryan, she's a professional skateboarder, never acted before, but her essence is so perfect and she's so incredibly fascinating. Yeah. And yes, so that's an example where we rewrote it for her. I mean, you had written it as a very strong, confident skater, a very sweet person, and she is all those things, but then the nuance was really based on her essence. Nico Haraga, who plays Tanner, is also a professional skater. They came from the same skate crew and they had never been in a movie. And we really just kind of loved that he has that buoyancy, that confidence, that sort of that sort of irresistible confidence of youth that is so kind of terrifying to young women, or at least it was to me in high school. We're like, how do they just feel so confident? It's just like so free. And he kind of embodied that completely. But, Austin Crute, who plays Alan, was a student at NYU while we were shooting the movie. And in fact, when we were shooting that theater party scene, he was trying desperately to finish his thesis.
He was literally finishing his thesis in that clamshell that he was sitting in that shot.
Typing away.
Like when we weren't rolling, he was typing, and then he'd like toss his computer to the side and film.
But it felt like such an opportunity to bring all this new talent into the fold, and they earned it. I mean, they were the best actors who auditioned, and I just think the casting directors who really go out and discover. I mean, when I first came to LA, I worked for Mally Finn, who was one of the best casting directors, and that was her MO. She, famously when she cast The Client, she was searching for young kids to play like the young punk kid star of the film. And a police officer came into her office one day and said, hey, I noticed that you have all these kind of punk kids coming in here. I pick up this kid like once a week. I think he's the kind of kid you're looking for. He's a real punk. So he brought in Brad Renfro, and I used to watch because I was just a lowly assistant, so I had lots of time to sit and watch audition tapes, like the greatest ever. And he, at 10 years old, chain smoked through his audition and had so much raw talent. But Mally was the one who said, he's the one, we all have to work harder to make the movie fit him because he's that special. And I was really inspired by that. So in a different way for Booksmart, that was the process. It was like, we are finding these very special people and we can mold our film a little bit to fit them.
So I'd love to hear you talk about, as a director, okay, in this film you have a lot of really chaotic scenes with a lot of kids, teenagers. What kind of environment do you try and create on the set? How did you, in those scenes where you've got, all these kids running around, how do you handle that as a director, and what's the mood on the set that you're creating?
Well, I think the most important thing for any set is to somehow create a cohesive energy, some sort of shared rhythm. And film sets feel like construction sites. They are hectic and loud and not at all conducive to relaxation and vulnerability. They're so scary. I mean, it's nearly impossible for actors to relax on most sets. And I wanted to create an environment where they could feel that there wasn't too much distance between the kind of energy we were showing on screen and what they were actually feeling in real life. So I played a lot of music. I created an environment where I demanded a kind of equality between all departments and the cast themselves. I wanted to just get rid of this bullshit that the cast is somehow in a class above the crew. I think that causes a lot of problems on film sets and in performance. It's very hard to relax when you feel somehow like this is not a true collaboration, that there's a separation between the cast and the crew. I think in theater it's very different. But I had found in my years on film sets, gosh, if we could only feel more of a connection and more of an understanding, a deeper understanding of what everyone's doing, I think that would really help. So it was a matter of setting that bar of mutual respect and support, playing music, good snacks, we believe in lunch, and then having just creating an environment which kind of asked the actors to continue participating even when they weren't on film. I mean, it was easy when we didn't have enough money to give them nice trailers anyway. But I encouraged them never to go back to their trailers. The thing that I have found really frustrating as an actor is that isolation of being an actor when you're activated for very short periods of time. You're working and then you go back to your trailer and wait and then come back, and it's all very kind of cold and uneven and sort of exhausting in an unnecessary way. The whole idea of hurry up and wait that we've kind of accepted, like how about hurry up and work? There's always something to do or create. When we had actors who were kind of hanging around on set, we wrote extra scenes for them. We said, you're here, let's shoot something in the corner. We might use it. So I think that giving everyone also creative license and agency, involving everyone, every department, telling the props master, what do you think the story's about? Let's really, understand this on the same level so that you can come up with ideas and feel excited, not just like you're at work doing what I say. All those things seem to fit together.
I'll also say as a totally neutral observer that it comes from the top down. When your director and your leader is the most prepared and also the most excited to be on set every day and sets a tone that's like she's done her homework and she's reminding everyone how lucky we are to be making a movie, which is really fun, even when it's 4 weeks of nights in Encino. That vibe it's very hard to fight when the person at the top and the leader is setting that tone, and that made it feel like a party the whole time. Like really kids, they're not that much younger than us. But they would come to set when they weren't shooting because they wanted to be around the vibe that she had created and how much fun we were all having. And that's something I've never experienced before.
So what were the basics of the production? You shot in LA for how long was the shoot?
26 days.
26 days.
Including a pre-shoot day. So really 25 days.
And did you have any rehearsal time for the cast?
Yes. I made it happen anytime we could. We also rehearsed when we could on location. So which really meant just bringing actors on the third scout and saying, meet us at this apartment. This is going to be your apartment. Sit in this room, feel it out, and then have a meeting with the production designer, Katie Byron, who's incredible, and her team, and have some ownership over the design of your character's room, feel out this space. But that was all thanks to our tremendous AD, Scott Robertson, who's really, truly one of the best in the business. He'd also just worked with Iñárritu. He had done The Revenant. So anytime anything became kind of tricky, I was like, it's better than The Revenant though, right? But the rehearsal period was so essential. And I just made it happen. I mean, I think oftentimes you'll hear from an actor's representative like, oh, they're available for 1 day before you shoot. And it was like, well, that's not going to work. So let's go directly to the actors and say, in order for this to work, I'm going to need you at least 3 separate times. And for the girls, for Beanie and Caitlin, I mean, we had access to them and they were so excited to work. So that was a kind of a constant flow for at least a month before we started shooting of conversations and talking through the script. But with the rest of the cast, I made sure to have at least 3 rehearsals with each of them.
You mentioned having music on set, and I wanted to ask you, the music cues in the film and the score is so fantastic and such a big part of the film. Did you have that in mind before shooting? Was that the type of stuff you were playing on set, or how did you approach music for the film?
Yeah, the soundtrack is pretty representative of what I was playing on set. I played a lot of hip hop on set. I played a lot of Lizzo on set. Yes. And it was great because it was a lot of like introducing Lizzo to young women, which is the greatest gift you can give any human. But I was inspired by directors, like Wes Anderson, like Spike Jonze. The idea of like creating a vibe with music is something that's just a real helpful shortcut to getting everybody quite literally on the same rhythm. But yeah, that's basically the vibe. I mean, because of all the nights, there was a lot of high energy music, and I really tried to keep it on as kind of constantly as possible until we were ready to actually shoot. I think that was also, luckily, we had a crew that was able to work with loud music playing. Not everyone loves to do that, but that was the type of music. I mean, we were really lucky, obviously, to get a lot of these artists to give us their music, and a lot of people gave us deals because they wanted to be a part of the film. Writing to James Murphy of LCD Sound System and describing that scene and sending him a clip and just like laying my heart out on the floor and saying it has to be that song. But everybody from, Alanis Morissette to Jurassic 5 to Perfume Genius, it was really, to Salt and Peppa, there was such a huge range of artists. But I loved that process. That was something that, I directed music videos before this, and I knew that element of it. I love storytelling through music, and when we were cutting the pool scene, and just on a whim, I put on that Perfume Genius track, Slip Away, when she jumped in the water, and it matched so perfectly. That was like true serendipity. That was just meant to be. And other ones, it took obviously a little bit more time. Although I think the Anderson .Paak track was a perfect fit when we put that on for the pizza scene. But yeah, I love music, and I just love the process. I think I could be a music supervisor. Like, this was the most fun element of the whole process. I just love it.
I've said this before, but I Shazammed so many songs on set that I had to go to premium.
So were there any, what were the big challenges in production, aside from the ticking clock? Were there any things, unexpected things that came along in the middle of the shoot that challenged you as a director or the production? We had to be quite flexible while we were shooting when we realized certain things weren't working the way that we kind of thought they would. That's obviously par for the course when you're making anything. But for instance, the opening scene where the girls are dancing outside the apartment, that was originally written as a scene where they were driving to school having kind of a lengthy conversation in a car. And we shot that and knew almost immediately that wasn't the right opener. And suddenly I panicked and thought, I don't have an opening scene for the movie. And we had no time to kind of pause and slow down and reshoot the day. It was like, well, it's done. And I know that's not the opening scene. And Beanie and Caitlin just had this thing they did. Every time they saw each other, they would dance. And watching them one day, we were like, that's it. Oh my God. So then it was just a matter of kind of buying an extra 40 minutes outside that apartment location to capture that dancing. So the challenges were not catastrophic. There was nothing like, we lost a huge location. It was just about remaining flexible, kind of watching how things were naturally evolving and sort of being responsive to that in the moment. But we were very, very lucky because of the intense preparation.
Yeah, I would just, shooting nights in the summer is a challenge because you forget.
Not enough nights.
It's a much shorter night than it is other times. But everything that should have been hard was fun. Like that really, because of the preparation and also the people, like there were a lot of things that I think with another group of people or another scenario would have felt very challenging and instead only felt kind of challenging in the inspiring way.
It's so true. Like when we were shooting the pool scene, we had 3 simultaneous units going at that moment. Wow. Because on the page, that pool scene was written to be very simple. It was Amy jumped in the water, looked for Ryan, found Ryan with Nick, got out of the water. So it wasn't necessarily scheduled to be that significant of a scene. But I knew secretly that it would be, and I was hoping for that. And so in order to have the time to do that, we had to have the multiple units running. So I was running back and forth from the pool and inside the house. But as Katie said, it was because everybody was so on board with the mission that it didn't become, we didn't go completely insane.
So you shot last summer? Is that?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I saw the Elizabeth Warren 2020 bumper sticker there. That was, It's a recent shoot.
Exactly. Exactly. That's not CGI, shockingly. We knew.
Well, maybe.
Actually, I will say that's kind of funny. I think we thought it would just be like, even if Elizabeth Warren didn't run, that's
so funny.
That's just what Amy would make for herself.
She would have put it on in 2017.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, Olivia, thank you so much. Katie, thank you for being here.
What an honor.
Film. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you at the forum.